Wabash, the gentleman's rule. You gotta believe in that stuff. Wabash always fight.
Hello and welcome to the Don Morel Show, your chance to hear the thoughts and comments of the head football coach of the Little Giant program. And Coach, we get a chance to talk after a good win for the Little Giants on Saturday, a 32-7 victory over Oberlin. What were your thoughts on the game?
I think for the guys we had playing and the injury situation we were in, well, number one, another great effort by the defense. Defense is playing very, very well. Then I thought the offense was efficient enough to score 32 points, which is better than we'd been doing. We needed a big game out of Isaac Avant, who really was the lone kind of healthy back that we had, and he went the distance, which is pretty good for a 180-pound kid. And then breakout game, Ryan Thomas, had struggled all season and really put together a great game when we needed it the most.
Well, you talked about the defense, and we're going to see a lot of Jackson Garrett here in just a few minutes. Jackson was the North Coast Athletic Conference Defensive Player of the Week after a career-high 10 tackles. He had a couple of sacks, had a huge interception and a great return. And he's a young man that's had to step into a new role as a starter because of the loss of Evan Hansen, but has really just become a steadfast part of your defense.
Did a super job. I know Mr. Hansen was very proud when Jackson was named Defensive Player of the Week. Very moving.
And of course, Jackson, a Westfield product. He had some pretty good coaching from a guy who used to patrol the defense for Wabash College. Jake Gilbert, who was his head coach in high school. So Jackson following well here with his efforts at Wabash. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of those highlights from Saturday's win. Again, a 32-7 victory. And there we see Ryan Thomas coming up with one of his 8 receptions, 165 yards. Ryan caught 2 touchdowns, nearly caught a third. We're actually going to see it here on the highlights. He almost, Odell Beckham Jr., a pass in the end zone. One-handed grab that nearly came through, but he really just did yeoman's work because you were also down at the wide receiver position. No Oliver Page, no Rashawn Jones on Saturday, and Ryan really carried the load for you.
He did, and he blocks well, too. Complete football player for us.
You mentioned Isaac Avant. We're going to see a couple of runs for him. 37 carries, a career high for Isaac, very much a Mason Zurich-type role on Saturday. He also ran for a career-high 215 yards. He scored 2 touchdowns, and he really carried the load for you in the backfield Saturday.
Yeah, he did, and then he had some big receptions, too.
Isaac with, as you mentioned, 2 catches for 29 yards. Matt Panola, we saw on the first highlight, or one of the early highlights, had 3 catches for 42 yards, almost found the end zone. He set up the first Isaac Avant touchdown. Just an overall good performance for your offense, as you mentioned, 263 net yards rushing. Jake Reed finished the game 14 of 25 passing for 245 yards and 2 touchdowns. So a good mix of the run and the pass. And that's going to set you up well for what you're going to have to do this week, I would imagine.
It does, and we feel like we're kind of getting our feet back under us on offense.
You mentioned defensively, and give Jackson Garrett's numbers again, 11 tackles overall, 10 at one point, set his career high. He added 1 more for 11, had the 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, the 1 interception with a 36-yard return. You had 3 sacks in the ball game. You also were able to recover a fumble. Brandon Peck scooped up that fumble. It was another game where you had no turnovers and forced 2 big turnovers. And with the weather conditions Saturday, that was really key, not turning the ball over.
Super windy day. We didn't attempt to pass in the fourth quarter. Those were tough conditions. It's great having a run game, though, that you can hang your hat on.
You also got another blocked kick on your side, Dallas Pitts Jr., second time this season. He's gotten in with some pressure on a kick attempt. So really it was closer to a complete game for your football team, and that's also got to be a big confidence booster heading into this week against Wittenberg.
It is still very shaky in the kicking game. We struggled with extra points. We did hit a couple field goals. We've tried everything under the sun. I think we're going to go to a hypnotist to get this problem fixed.
Man, somebody mentioned on one of the fan boards, maybe the drop kick's not out of the question.
Anything is possible.
But You do, as we mentioned, we look at the tail end of the highlights here. We're going to see a couple of final big plays. It'll close out with the Isaac Avant 20-yard touchdown run that was your final score of the game. You also got a chance to see some new guys get involved. We've seen Nick Hammond in some games, but he became much more a part of the passing game because he was called on to be one of the keys in the passing game with the absence of Oliver Page and Rashawn Jones, and he really stepped in, did a nice job. Michael Walker got some carries for you, did a good job in that role as well, so you really got a chance to see some different guys. I know Nate Melke was out on the field in the passing game for you as well.
He was. We played some younger guys in the offensive line, too, with the loss of Russ Burning. We get Russ back this week, which is great.
Yeah, Dane Smith got the start for you at one of the tackle positions. We've seen him throughout the season. He's been a key reserve for you, but did a great job in the early start. What does it say about your team that Oberlin was able to come out and they looked good offensively on their first series? But then defensively, Jeff Ramsey and the defensive unit just came up with a perfect game plan to really shut them down the rest of the day. And your offense just really picked things up. I mean, it was really kind of, it seemed like both groups playing off of one another. The offense would get something going. The defense would get a big stop. The defense got that stop. The offense would get something going on the next series.
Well, just, we've commented this has been a very, very strange, unique season, and the Wabash kids keep hanging in there, fighting. The week before, Oberlin had a chance to beat Worcester in the last play of the game. 2 weeks before that, they had DePaul on the ropes. So they're not a bad football team at all. We did a nice job, but now we need to raise our level to play with Wittenberg.
Well, you mentioned their record not indicative of how they've played. That DePaul game, they actually had two unusual plays. They snapped a ball over the head of their punter out of the back of the end zone for a safety for 2 points. They also had a two-point defensive conversion by DePaul, and that ended up being a 2-point ball game. You take either of those plays away, it's an overtime game. You take them both away, and Oberlin beats DePaul by 2. So they certainly came in here as a very capable football team, a little undermanned, but certainly a lot of talent.
No, they have a lot of talent. They just have no depth.
And we saw that, as you mentioned, with the Worcester game. They had a 14-0 lead there, but Worcester was able to wear them down and then get that last-second touchdown for the victory. Depth won't be a problem with your opponent this weekend. You head over to Wittenberg, the favorite to win the conference, undefeated right now, two-time conference champion already. The Wittenberg-Wabash game are always, just knockdown, drag-out fights. They have been close ball games over the past few years. What does this game mean in terms of preparation for you and the coaching staff and for the players going into this week?
Well, I think both teams just know each other so well. Not just formation recognition. I'm talking about people. Wittenberg knows who Matt Pinola and Oliver Page and Ryan Thomas and our guys are, and we know who their people are, and they know what we like to do, and vice versa. And it is traditionally a very, very physical, tight football game, and we're planning on the same thing for Saturday.
They have a veteran quarterback who has been great over his career, Jake Kennedy. He comes into this Saturday's game. He's thrown for over 2,000 yards, has thrown for 27 touchdowns. His primary target has been Nick Kendall, who has 59 receptions for 327 yards, but they mix the touchdowns around to various receivers. Kendall, Jaheim Washington, Jeff Tiffner, Thad Snodgrass, Liam Duncan have all been big receivers. Jeff Tiffner with 11 of those touchdown receptions. What do you have to do to try and keep their passing game from just completely exploding and being able to put up a lot of points?
Well, I think what makes them so difficult to defend is they may have the three best receivers in the league on the field at the same time. The tight end's a good player, too. So we are going to have to be very, very patient on defense. We do need to get pressure on the quarterback. We've worked that all week pretty hard. And then you need to be deeper and wider than they are. They hit big play after big play after big. I mean, I've got to believe they've got 10 or 15 passing touchdowns of 35 yards or longer. It's got to be that much.
They lost a very good running back in Sarley with an injury, very similar to the situation Wabash is in with the loss of Ike James. They've got a couple of guys that they've platooned through. They've both rushed for over 300 yards. Their running game hasn't been the strong part of their offense, but it's been very solid and sets up their good passing game.
It does, and they are so above-board talented and execute so well in the passing game. I can see where it's much easier for them just to call a pass than a run.
Defensively, they've created 34 tackles for loss. They have 13 sacks on the season. They will get after you with their front line. Their front line has always, year in, year out, been very good, and they have solid linebackers and defensive backs as well. What do you have to do offensively against a team like Wittenberg?
Well, certainly you can't get behind the chains. It needs to be 1st and 10, 2nd and 5, or you're really going to have problems. Their front is that good. Really big also, especially at the linebacker spot. They're 235 and 225, so two big guys in there. But we need to be Wabash. We need to have a balanced attack. We need to run the ball well to have a chance in this football game.
We've talked about in past shows, this really is an important game because you still have a chance to capture a share of the conference title, but that goes through Wittenberg this weekend. This is a game that you target on your calendar every year, and it's worked out as usual the way you always expect. The conference title is going to, for all purposes, basically be decided this weekend. Does that provide an extra boost? Have you seen a little extra something from the guys in practice this week, or are they still just taking it very workmanlike that, hey, we know we play a good opponent, but we just want to execute and do what we do?
We really try and practice the same week, same way every week. But this is a big game, and you can't hide that from the kids. They know it. When they look at video during meetings, they see a very worthy opponent, and we are going to have to play our A game to have a chance to beat Wittenberg.
And this is the first of a stretch of 3 games against very talented opponents, so it certainly brings your attention to the last 3 games of the calendar because you play a good Wittenberg team this week. And then once you come out of that game, I know you're not getting ready for B.J. Hammer and Allegheny, but that's the next opponent on the list. And then the stands are already going up, so some of the attention on what's coming on November 10th is already starting to get in the periphery of the players. So this really is kind of a tough 3-game stretch that you're coming into to close out the season.
It sure is, and we've done it before. My first year, we had to play a tough OU team. We beat them. We had to go play Denison and beat them, and then we ran out of gas in the Monon Bell. I think our guys know the way this year has been, we are only good if we play it 1 game at a time.
And that game is against Wittenberg this Saturday. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff at Edwards Maurer Field. I'll have the game for you on the radio at 91.3 FM, WNDY Crawfordsville, beginning at about 12:40 with this very show, the Don Morel Show, as part of our pregame, and then kick off at 1 o'clock. Wittenberg will provide video and live statistics, and we have links to those on the Wabash College website at sports.wabash.edu. Of course, we did mention the stands are starting to go up, and the tickets are going off the shelf quickly. About 75% of the Monon Bell game is sold out at this point. There are still tickets remaining, but you need to act quickly. Go to wabashtickets.com and get your tickets for the Monon Bell Classic. Reminder, there's the regular ticket at $25 and the super ticket at $35, which will allow you 1 re-entry into the game, 1 exit and re-entry. There's also a special family section. You can sign up for tickets there. A lot of the parking has been sold out, along with some the tailgating. There is still very limited amounts available. You can find out more information about that on wabashtickets.com as well. That's coming up November 10th. And of course, if you can't make it here, you can watch the game on Fox Sports Indiana. We'll have all that information in 2 weeks when we sit down with this show to talk about the Monon Bell game. But until then, Coach, it's off to Springfield, Ohio on Friday to get ready for Saturday's game. I know it'll be a tough one, but Should be a fun one as always. Good luck, and I know we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.
You've been watching The Don Morel Show, your chance to hear the thoughts and comments of the head football coach of the Little Giant program. We'll talk to you next week.
Wabash, the gentleman's rule. You gotta believe in that stuff. The Wabash always fight.